Have you ever wondered how an entrepreneur's passion for floristry can blossom into a sustainable and impactful business? Today we're about to dive into the story of a remarkable entrepreneur whose life ethos and business ethos blend flawlessly. It's a deeply personal business, but it is also a business that endears her to her customers. Hello and welcome to Season 7 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Gun. My mission is to uncover the stories and strategies of Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia to help you as you navigate your own business journey. This episode is sponsored by Redbox Studio. Today I'm speaking to Brenda James, the visionary founder and principal florista of Nook Flowers based in Malaysia. Nook Flowers is not your average floral studio, as today's episode will demonstrate. It's a commitment to responsible floristry and business practices. Today's episode is particularly intriguing because Brenda's story is not just about crafting beautiful arrangements, but also about cultivating a business that reflects her principles and values. From her bold decision to close on Valentine's Day, yes, this woman is audacious, and I absolutely love how she makes scary decisions, to her dedication to using locally grown flowers. Brenda's approach to entrepreneurship in the floral industry is nothing short of inspiring. So whether you're a flower enthusiast, an aspiring entrepreneur, or someone passionate about sustainability, this episode promises to unfold valuable insights. Hello, Brenda. Welcome to Womenpreneur Asia.
Hey, Krista. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm talking to you from our really beautiful studio here in Kerinci in Kuala Lumpur. So that's the hub of operation for Nook Flowers. This is where I spend most of my happy days.
And before we get into talking about Nook Flowers and your happy days, what are 3 things about you that people don't know and they'll be quite surprised if they found out?
So people don't know? Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't normally have flowers at home. That's something that people don't know about me, which is ironic, and I'll explain why later. I sing a lot. I sing at work. I sing to my flowers a lot and in day to day. And the third thing that people don't know about me is that I am actually more of an introvert than I lead on to be. But the thing is, I've come and made peace with the fact that you cannot be a business owner and be the introvert you want to be. So along the way, I've learned how to balance this out.
Oh, I like the third one. We can get back to that in a bit, right? And explain how you overcome that, or at least worked around that
and balance it out. Yes.
Balance it out, okay? So let's get into the very beginning of how you started Nook Flowers, the business that you're in.
I was always into flowers. I enjoyed them, but it was more a personal satisfaction thing. It's what I enjoyed doing, and it was more for home and for friends and fun. It was a fun thing for me. I don't know if I was conventionally good at it, but I know it made me happy. And that was the most important thing. I mean, plants and flowers. I grew up in a home where both my mom and dad have amazing green thumbs, so it's always a lush home. But I wasn't always in this industry. I actually came from a brand communications industry, which is what I spent the first half of my working life in. I was in an agency, and I was busy building brands for other people or working with them to build their brand communications portfolio and all. But about a decade in, I decided that I needed to pursue my own happiness. I needed to figure out what was it that was going to make me happy. It was an interesting crossroads to be at, because the first thing you do is you feel like, okay, I'm going to leave this job. Then what do I need to go into? So I started going for a whole bunch of interviews, really nice, high-profile jobs. But I used to come back from these interviews and I'll be thinking to myself, I don't know, is that really what you want to do, And at that time I had, I was sitting at home, and it's very, very interesting afternoon. I was sitting at home, and I had just acquired this property. And I was sitting there, and in the middle of the day, I think, I never knew the sun would hit that wall at this time. And I didn't know the plants would cast such a beautiful shadow against, because, when you work in an industry as energetic and high octane as brand comms pretty much work all the time, right? So I go in, and then by the time I come out, the sun has set, and then this goes into a routine, and then you work weekends because there are client expectations. So then suddenly I was thinking to myself, what else didn't I notice in this pursuit of building a career? What else didn't I notice? So then that led me into a little rabbit hole of trying to figure out what was it that was going to make me happy. And I realized the thing that made me most happy was when I could work with my own hands. It was the process of creation that was making me happy, whether it was an art-based creation or craft-based or flower-based creation. So then I said, okay, I had a little bit of money saved up, and I thought to myself, maybe I can give this a go. But I have to say, right, at that point also, I romanticized the notion of what it was to have your own flower shop. It was fully romanticized. I did a business plan, super optimistic business plan. It crashed in the first 6 months, you know. So this was the learning curve. This was the learning curve of how it all started. But started we did. I had a conversation with my sister, and then we were like, okay, let's do this together. So Belinda, my sister, and I, we started up Nook Flowers, and which brought about the name, because there we were sitting and trying to figure out a DBKL application, and they asked you to give 3 names of what you want your place to be, right? So we came up with all the little cliched names, flower related. And then suddenly she said to me, but Akka, you keep saying I want to have a little nook of my own. I want to have a little nook of my own. So why don't we call it Nook Flowers? And that's how it all started. That's how Nook Flowers started. That was the catalyst.
Yeah. And that was in 2008.
This was in 2008. Yeah.
So it's been quite a journey then, since 2008.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. Yeah. It's been a journey. It's 15 years. We turned 15 this year in July. Sometimes I look back and I think to myself, how did we even manage that? How did we get to this point? Because it hasn't always been an easy journey. And the last few years especially have been particularly difficult across the board for everybody, right? But it's been particularly difficult. And also, it is, as I go in this journey, one of my biggest takeaways in my 15th year is this: growth is not always linear. That was one of my biggest takeaways. And I think it's very important for entrepreneurs to understand this. In any business that is passion-driven, in any business that is such an extension of you and your identity and what you bring into it, growth will always differ between two entities. So yeah, it may not have been phenomenal growth, especially the post-COVID years, but growth is still growth. And in the 15th year mark, again, I've come to understand that phrase, growth is not always linear.
And I also know that you're really a unique kind of florist, because we've got lots and lots of wonderful reviews on Google business profile, and everyone just raves about the artist that Brenda is. Like, just tell you what colors, what kind of favorite blooms, and then people will say, wow, I'm blown away by her creations. So
that's very kind of people.
How do you match the creation to that request? Like, just say, I think this person likes lilies. And how do you find out from that person? What is it that makes that person happy? And then how you go about manifesting that as a bouquet?
Yeah. So the hard part, I want to preface this by saying that 80% of our clients at Nook Flowers are repeat customers. And I am,
which is a great thing. Which is a great thing.
It's a great thing. But that means that it's also been a journey. We've traveled together on the floral path, and I'm super proud of the fact that one of our clients, who's now a super good friend, who walked into the flower shop on the first day we opened, 31st of January 2008, still buys flowers from us today. So because we've had these long-term journeys with clients, so a lot of time I've had a chance to influence the process of buying flowers, I have had a chance to influence their taste. Wasn't always like that. In the beginning, people are quite, I would like this, please. And I mean, it's the conventional, I want red rose and baby's breath. And if a client wants red rose and baby's breath, you give them red rose and baby's breath lah. But along the way, so maybe the first time I'll give you what you want. Then the second time around, I will casually say, so this is what we did last time. Should we try something else? Tell me about the person. Tell me about the recipient. What do they like? What don't they like? So all of this plays a role in me making decisions for my clients. Also, one of the things that we do the most successfully is the fact that our bouquets are so heavily textured. There's so many types of flowers in one bouquet, right? So at any one point when somebody receives it, the chances of them being happy is very high, because what you're getting is this full floral garden experience, as opposed to one primary flower and one filler and heaps of packaging which nobody needs. So there's also a role of intuition plays a great role in this as well. And I share this with my team all the time. I always tell them, if you can see it in your head, if you can feel it, and if you can see it in your head, then your hands will produce it. But you must have strong follow through. You must have this confidence in the intuitiveness of it. I know it's a little bit woohoo and out there, but this is a job that's just guided a lot by taste. And nothing about taste is linear, right? Nothing about taste is objective. You're trying. So the other thing that I do is, and I make people understand that the importance of freshness and quality. So I give them the assurance. I said, listen, we take floral stock every day. Every day we take new stock, which means that by the end of the day, that stock is finished and then the next restock. So sometimes when people call us about 3 or 4 o'clock, even though we have time, I have to say, I'm sorry, but we've run out of material, so I can get this out for you tomorrow. Oh, how come? I said, because we ran out of stock. It is a weird thing for people to say, but this is the assurance that I give you. I take fresh stock in every day. I'm at the wholesaler every morning. I pick what I think is the best, and then I come back. So everything that goes out that day will be curated based on what I think is the best material for the day. And this also makes a big difference in two aspects. Number one, what the client is getting in terms of quality. Number two, us as florists, because this is the set amount of materials we have, we push the boundaries a little bit harder in trying to make each bouquet that goes out a little bit different. Because now you're working with 6, 7, 8 ingredients, which maybe they might work together, maybe they won't, maybe you need to present it in a different form. So this also pushes our creativity as florists, which is why sometimes no two arrangements, actually not sometimes, all the time, no two arrangements that go out will be identical. Again, when you're working with fresh flowers, right? Some flowers might have buds that are bending this way. Some might be front-facing. Some might be unbloomed. So it's a question of understanding what it is that you have there and then making it work. So you've got the best quality stock. You've got your creativity now pushing the boundaries forward. And then when these two are in place, the third aspect is client satisfaction. So now when the client receives it, often the client's recipient receives it, they're going to see something that is like, oh wow, I never thought that these colors would go together. Because it's different, right? Or it's like, wow, I've never seen something that pairs this and this together. I use a lot of chrysanthemums in my work. We have this mentality that chrysanthemums are a cheap flower, are a carnation flower, are a funeral flower. Let me just say something, nothing cheap about
flower or something like that, right?
A prayer flower or something like that, right? Which is funny because in Europe, chrysanthemums are celebrated. I mean, I don't even have to tell you about the cultural significance of chrysanthemums in Japan. But at the same time, over here, people will be like, oh, I love lilies, and that's great. Lilies are a great flower. But overseas, people are going to say, oh, lilies are a funeral flower. White lilies are often used for funeral. So you see, it's a mindset.
Cultural context, right?
It is a cultural context. It's not wrong. It's not right. Sometimes I don't see it that way. For me, I'm seeing, wow, this chrysanthemum is amazing in texture. If I pair this with something a little bit more expensive, what the client is going to get now is a bigger bouquet, but then the texture is so great. It works well together. It pairs together. So what I have done is, instead of using things like paper and unnecessary elements, I have now added more flowers to your bouquet. So it's also a better quality now. You're not better quality of offering and better bang for your buck. Yeah, and also people really need to stop thinking that chrysanthemums are cheap. Chrysanthemums are no longer cheap. Yeah.
And more value. Because instead of all this paper stuff.
Yes. And then what's going to happen is, when you get this bouquet now, right? So now the lilies will bloom or the roses will bloom out, and 3 days into it, something like, so the roses are the first to go. They will wilt the first. They will fade off the first. Then subsequently something else. So now they have a bouquet that now extends way past what is a conventional period of time when flowers will stay in a vase, which means their enjoyment now is for a longer period. And then when they're done, when the flowers have all faded, the foliage is still in there, right? And the foliage, if you put it in clean water, it's going to root. You can then go and plant it in your garden. So this is a process that we've really, really, really thought through. It's that, like, it's what's going to... Flowers bring joy, but also what's going to give you the most joy over a longer period.
I like that perspective, because I always know that when people receive flowers, I mean, some people think like, okay, great, get the flowers, great, I put it in a vase, right?
Yeah.
But after a couple of days, they die, and then we'll just put it in the trash or compost it, whatever that we can compost.
Yeah.
But I can see from the way you're talking about your flowers is that I think it's more than just a business for you. There are some principles at play. There's an approach that you bring to what you do in your business. I remember when we talked about this before we got on the recording, is you want to talk about sustainability, right? I mean, it's a big thing now, but I guess you were also doing it way before this became a buzzword today.
In fairness, I don't use the term sustainable floristry. Sustainable as a word it's a very big word. It's a very all-encompassing word. These days, it seems to be like a catch-all word, right? Everybody's like sustainability. So I don't use the word sustainable floristry. What we say that we do is responsible floristry. Because first of all, right, if I want to say that I am sustainable, then I need to prove that the process, my purchase chain, everything
is sustainable. The supply chain, right? Everything.
The supply chain, yes. Things don't miraculously become sustainable the moment they pass my door. They don't suddenly become sustainable, So instead, what I'm saying is we practice responsible floristry, which means I'm taking ownership for my actions, the actions that we as a company decide. How we make our purchases, where we make our purchases from, the impact our purchases has. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is when we create our flowers, what are we introducing into the bouquet? Once it leaves the shop, how much of waste is being generated from this product that we are creating? Or even in our day-to-day cycle in the shop, how much of waste are we generating? How does our purchasing pattern affect the waste that we're generating? So these are a lot of things that we think about, and we can 100% take responsibility for these decisions. So, and then in the same vein, what do I wrap my bouquets with? How do I educate my customers in how to handle this? How do I educate customers in how they should buy flowers, not just from me, but from any florist wherever in the world they are? How do I? So all of this is an important factor in all of these are important elements in doing what we do. But to say that we are sustainable floristry, I think is irresponsible, because whatever said and done, the products that we are using, primarily the flowers, may not be grown sustainably. May be grown in farms where, as is the norm, pesticide is used. You want to be sustainable, you need to show that, the workers who are working in the farms all have fair wages. These are all important things in a part of sustainability, which at this point in the supply chain, in the retail chain, I cannot I cannot say that we are doing. So instead, all I'm saying is we practice responsible floristry, because from the point the flowers arrive in my shop, that's when I can start making a difference with what we are doing.
Yeah. I'm glad you made that distinction too, because sometimes people who are not in industry, like myself, I probably would ask, I think the word sustainable, and because people always use the term, everywhere these days, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's good that you actually have that as a distinction, like you practice responsible, right, rather than the sustainable part. So in your case, could you give us some examples?
One of the things that we do is there is as minimal packaging as possible in the bouquets that we produce. And actually, customers need to understand this, They actually have a say in how they want their bouquets wrapped. So, for example, regardless who you're buying from, understand that what is important is the flowers that you're purchasing. The flowers are always the star of the show. The flowers are the hero, the main component of what you're buying. Everything else is just packaging. So make a decision then what it is that you're paying for. So you can always tell the florist, I like the flowers that you're making, but I don't need that 3 layers of plastic and paper and wrapping, Can you please pare it down? Customers can actually ask for this, and they should. So find a florist, most importantly, that supports. For me, it's find a florist who supports locally grown flowers. That's important. This means that they will be championing something that has a lesser carbon footprint, things that are grown more naturally in season, and therefore they are fresher for you. So by the time they arrive from the farm to the shop to the customer, this is a much shorter journey that is fresher for you. Secondly, if you can, ask for arrangements that go straight into vases. Ask for arrangements that are hand wrapped, maybe packed with cotton and minimal wrapping, because then when you take it home, you just unwrap it and you go straight into vases. So you're doing away with things like, floral foam and everything else. This is the most basic of things, right? And then just understand that minimal wrapping doesn't mean that it's going to look any less. Again, what you're paying for is the flowers. Do you really want to create so much of waste just for a few minutes of presentation when something is received? So this is another thing to remember as well. A personal opinion for me, and I know there's a lot of people who actually sell products like this, but again, this is a personal opinion for me. I would normally avoid flowers that are preserved and choose a more natural option, because more natural options means it can go into compost. It would break down. With preserved flowers, they tend to go through chemical processes, which means that they no longer will biodegrade. So this is also a factor to keep in mind. Again, depending on what you're buying for, sometimes people want preserved flowers because they want to keep something for a long time. And they say, okay, so they're not worried about it. But if you are someone who enjoys flowers, then consider options which will break down in compost. So it makes a better difference in that sense. For us over here at Nook Flowers, our first choice is always like hand-tied, paper-wrapped bouquets. It also means that the packaging that we use, so we use like about 1.5 sheets of paper per bouquet. And this is just regular recycled craft paper. I'm a big fan of botanical prints. So we got these beautiful botanical stamps. They were linocraft and created for us. So then we stamped all the papers with these botanical prints, and sometimes it will change according to the season. So closer to Christmas, you would see something a little bit more seasonal for Christmas. During August and September, you see more patterns. Other times of the year, you would see things like, local foliage like paku pakis. You see just chrysanthemums. You see flowers that have all been botanically rendered into lino. So it's very nice. It's nice. People enjoy it. Sometimes people tell me, we unwrapped the bouquet, and then now my kids use it to draw their designs on, or I put it on the dining table and the kids have a little project on it. And that makes me happy, right? And then that piece of paper can then be recycled completely. There's nothing in there, there's no sticker on it, there is no plastic coating on it. So that paper can be recycled.
There's no waxiness on it, right?
There's no waxiness, there's nothing. Yeah, which also is important, because when we tell customers, when you receive a bouquet, please don't put it flat, because when you put it flat, the water is going to pour out, then the whole thing is going to get ruined. So always have the head higher than the And then in the same vein, we have a neighbor next door. Our neighbor is a health food company. So every time they receive their products in boxes, they save all their boxes for us and send it to us. So that every bouquet that goes out, we just put the bouquet in the box, and then the riders carry it away, which means that the bouquet also will arrive in the best way possible. So again, we are recycling the boxes that have been given to us, and they're perfectly good boxes. So which means that whoever receives it, whether they're taking it home or transporting it, so there's a whole process here. But I like how it's just there's a positive cycle of product use over here. We do use a little bit of plastic in our bouquets because we live in the tropical climate. Dehydration is a very real thing. So with flowers, we do use a small plastic sleeve that cotton and water is packed in, and then that bag is aqua packed, so it holds the stem together. And that's about the only plastic that goes into the bouquet. Everything else is paper wrap. We use ribbons that have no branding on it so that you can save. These are really nice satin ribbons that can be saved. And then we use it, whether you're using it for a birthday present or a Christmas wrap or something, or it goes into a craft drawer.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, because these are good quality ribbons, Why would you want to waste it, right? So, but the chances are if that thing had been labeled Nook Flowers on it, then you're like, I don't think I'm going to be using it. So you would toss it away. Equally, just like that, we have people who, around the neighborhood, they will bring back that paper, they will smooth it out for me, the tissue, and they say, I brought it back for you so you can reuse it. I say, okay, thank you. I'll find a way to use it somehow. But I like that this is where people are going with it. I like the effort that they take. Because, we know you don't like to waste, so we'll bring it back to you. And that's lovely, right? It's like, so whenever things like this happen, I'm like, okay this is it This is that knowledge that I've been trying so hard to share. It's nice to see it take hold and then come back.
This is also the impact. I mean, after 15 years of telling or sharing with your clients the things that you're doing, suddenly they're like, okay, we have to save the ribbons, we have to save the people.
Because I'm a broken wheel, right? I keep repeating the same thing again and again and again. But as long as it sticks, I think it's sticking. Yeah.
And I also like your approach of using local motifs and local flowers.
Yeah, Diana Zura is amazing. So she's also traveled the path with us, right? So what she does is I keep throwing all these difficult assignments to her. I said, no, Diana, no, it needs to be more grown, not flown, more grown, not flown. And then she's like, okay. And then she'll go and work out something and then she'll come back. And then now she's come back to me and she keeps introducing all these amazing people to me. Like we have a class coming up at Nook Flowers soon where somebody's coming in to do extraction of dyes from locally grown flowers and leaves, and then how that dye can be used for something else. So this whole process of using locally grown botanicals is something that I have been asking for. But then our designer, Diane, she's taken it to the next level in helping us find ways to use it in our day-to-day. Nice. Yeah.
There's also another way of sticking, right?
Really rubbing off on everybody, right, that way.
So everyone is taking a message to heart and finding ways to do what they can.
Yeah. And then they will call me and then like just last night, Diana was calling me and saying, I'm thinking, right? We need to do this and we need to do that. And I like the fact that there is this much of buy-in, that vestedness in the product, that she's like, I like the vestedness in the brand's beliefs and philosophies, that even our partners, our freelancers, all feel like, I need to throw this idea at Brenda because she's going to take and do something with it. Coming back to the whole responsible floristry thing, also we take it up another notch. So Belinda, who is my sister and the other half of Nook Flowers, is very much a family-run business. Brenda and Belinda, we started it up. But now my husband, Danny, he also works in the company. He takes care of our operations for us. He keeps making these jokes. Just don't ask me to work with flowers and I'll do everything else. Just don't ask me to make any flowers. So we're very much a family-run business. Belinda continues to champion all the sustainability initiatives. She keeps bringing in partners for us to work with. Recently, she went on to Japan because she was a IELTS scholar, the 63rd batch of the IELTS program in Japan. So she represented Malaysia earlier this year. She came back with this amazing body of knowledge about how to take the sustainability agenda further And all of this fuels our passion. It fuels us to, sometimes some of the things that she learns is on a global level, it's on a much bigger level, right? But then you break it down into the granular, and then you bring it into what we are doing. And it's amazing the new things that we can come up with. So this continues to be driving force behind how we shape the products that we are selling, how we shape the ideas and the merchandise and the campaigns that we come up with. Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question.
You did, but you sound like you have another 50 years of floristry going on. All the ideas that you're talking about.
Yeah, well.
You got lots of stuff going on, right? I mean, lots of, I guess a lot of artistic,
a lot of things I want to do. Yeah.
Creativity, blooming. Sorry to be so cliche, but
no, it's okay.
It's so many things. And I guess part of it is also like you're working with fresh plants and flowers. I think it gives you a very good energy, right? And you want to think of more things to do.
You know, Krista, it is an absolute privilege to call this a job, you know. I mean, what a lucky girl I am, right? To be able to work with these products that have grown and bloomed, and they come to me, and then I am surrounded by this beauty every day. And then I take all of this, I gather all of this up, and then I'm like, okay, how do I make this even more beautiful? And how do I infuse this with the best positive vibes and send it out to bring joy or comfort or some level of wellness to the person who's going to receive it? I mean, how wonderful is it to be able to call what I do a job?
So you really truly are lucky that you and your sister started this.
Yeah, it is with any small brand is an extension of the ideologies that shape them. It's an extension of the personalities behind them. So Nook Flowers very much is that Nook Flowers is an extension of everything that we hold close to our hearts. And then that has now been built into a brand philosophy and the way we operate the business.
Yeah. Which I love, because I think part of it is also that you put so much of heart and soul, not only into the business, but also in every bouquet and every arrangement that you create for your clients.
I think it really makes a difference. I think people sense it when they receive it. People sense it when it reaches them. Yeah.
I didn't even know that I could actually tell my florist that I don't want certain things. I always believe that, I just want to order a bouquet. But I never thought of that.
In fairness, a lot of our purchasing patterns are now click and buy. So sometimes when you click and buy, what you see on the screen is your expectations is that you would get that lah. So, you know, it's very clear what you're paying for. It's very clear what you will get. And when you don't get it, then that becomes a different problem. But a lot of our buying patterns are now shaped that way. The difference with us is I talk to almost everybody who purchases from us. It is a point of pride for me. Whether it's a call or whether it's a message that comes in via WhatsApp, every call is handled in its own merit lah. Sometimes people see a picture that I posted up online and they say, I saw this, I really like it, can I have it 3 days from now? So now this gives me an opportunity to see whether the items that I used would be available 3 days from now at my stockist, whether they would still be available, or if I know for a fact that that is towards the end of the buying cycle, it may not be the best, then that gives me a chance to tell the person who's buying, that's a really nice choice, but I need to tell you, we may not have all of that. May I instead change it to this, this, and this? I'm quite upfront about it. But what they're having then at that point is a real conversation with somebody who knows what they're talking about. With the only objective, I want to give you the best thing that you're buying. That is my only objective in all of this. I can tell you, absolutely sure, I can give it to you. But I already know that Oncidium orchids that I used in that bunch only arrives 3 times a week at the wholesaler. And at that window, it's not going to be available. I can just tell you, sure, I'll do it. And then I give you a product that's less than fresh. But what does that say about me as a service provider? So it's a point of pride. I enjoy these conversations. Sometimes also I get a bit impatient because we do a lot of things via WhatsApp right now. So sometimes if 2 hours I answer, then somebody goes off and they come back and they reply half an hour later, and then I reply, and then and then this goes on, and then there comes a point where I'll just be like, "Hi, are you available? Take a quick call." And then they will be like, "Oh yeah, sure, I can talk." And then I get on the phone and then I talk them through it, and in 5 minutes we're done. We're done. But you know what's really nice? That they hear me talk about it. I hear them. I hear their concerns. And very quickly we have resolved this. And then I can move on to get on with what you want. Yeah. So it's I like the talking to people thing now. I do.
I think that is also the benefit of running a business where you can actually have that personal touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than just text me what you want and I'll just get
a faceless entity, right?
Yeah.
And it makes a difference. And actually, this has also been our secret in ensuring people come back. Not so secret, but this is because people feel that they have access to the brand. That when they call, there is somebody who is going to answer them and sort them out. And that's quite nice when you enlist a service. I think it's quite nice for people to know that they can do that. Yeah.
And it also makes them feel special, right? Like treasured. I pick up a phone and talk to you, and you feel special because you're taking time to understand what I need before you even create anything for me.
Yeah. Earlier this year, I was on a radio. I was in an interview at BFM. And I said something, I think I said in the course of the interview that I talk to everybody who calls. And then somebody called a couple of days after, and I answered the phone and I said, "Nook Flowers, Brenda speaking." And they said, "Oh, it's true. You really do talk to everybody." I laughed. It was so funny because it was just like, as I asked her, "Okay, did I pass the test?" Because
funny. It's so rare, right? These days it's so rare.
I think it is. I think it's getting more and more rare. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that humanness, right? The human touch that people miss. Right? That, like, oh, do I call? Will I actually get someone on the other end to answer my queries or my questions, right? You said at the beginning that you're actually an introvert who's managed to balance that. And I wanted to bring that back into this conversation at this point because you pick up the phone, you talk to everyone. Everyone.
So what happens is, sometimes I'm just talked out lah. By the end of the day, right, I'm talked out. So I need to check out a little bit. I really do. I need to check. It's not just talking to potential customers or calling for day-to-day bouquets. I could also be talking to brides who are planning, and brides have a different level of anxiety in the lead up to weddings. I could also be talking to potential vendors. I could be talking to partners. I could be talking to so many aspects of people that I need. I could be talking to media, but there are many times like I am talked out, so I need to have
your me time.
No, I need to have people free weekends. It's a real thing. It is calendared into the family calendar. It is calendared in, right? It will say Brenda's people free weekend. Yeah. That means we don't take any social engagements. Obviously, the social engagement is already on the calendar, and there's nothing you can do about it. But the moment we realize that, listen, there's a window here that we can do this for 2 days, we don't actually have to leave the house. That's what we do now. We're happy to stay at home. There are books that I want to read. There's food that we can cook. I want to work on my own plants at home. I want to do all things. But we have people free weekends. And it's really the best thing that I can do for myself. Honestly, it really is the best thing. Yeah.
It's a great strategy.
Yeah. So we start the weekend with, maybe we'll have a family breakfast or something, so I can see my mom and all these things. And then that's it. Then we clock out. And then Monday morning, we are back at work. Also because other people's holidays are not our holidays. When you work in retail and you work in events, right? Other people's holidays are not your holidays. Often we are working right up to the eve of Chinese New Year. We barely make it in time to get to my in-laws for reunion dinner, And they're lovely about it. They completely understand that this is the nature of our job. I've had invitations coming in for weddings on the eve of Deepavali, and we're like, no, I'm sorry, we can't, because it's the eve of Deepavali, so we are going to be really busy making flowers for everybody who's celebrating. Christmas, we really draw the line. Christmas is a time-out phase for us. It's important that we have Christmas for ourselves. But often weekends are spent working at weddings. We are in a ballroom in a hotel somewhere making flowers, you know. So everybody's holidays and public holidays aren't necessarily ours. So it's very important that when we get the window, we need to do this to be able to really recharge ourselves. Yeah. This is a job that has a lot of human connections. And if this human doesn't recharge, I'm not going to be able to do it at optimum level. Yeah.
I think that is very interesting because, I since you talked about it, you don't really get a proper holiday when everyone else is having a holiday. You're working, right?
Yeah.
You're creating your flowers and your
So now we're going to go into the season, go into Christmas. And then New Year, and then Chinese New Year, and then
Mother's Day.
Well, actually, there's Valentine's Day in between, but that's a different story for me, right? So often, we know that once this belt starts, until February, there's nothing. Don't expect to be able to go anywhere. Don't expect to be able to do anything major. And this is the reality of again, we are a small business, so we are very involved in it. Everybody plays a role in it. So anytime that we're actually going to step away that way, it does mean that we need to shut down a little bit during that period.
Would you like to talk about the day that you skipped?
Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Okay. So this is our third year of this monumental decision. Can I just put it out there that it's often misunderstood? And people say to me, oh, you're the florist who boycotts Valentine's Day. So can I just say out there that I didn't boycott Valentine's Day. I think celebrations of love are wonderful. All I'm saying is you don't need to wait for one day in the year to do it. Celebrate it often, celebrate it every day, celebrate it as you need to celebrate it. The reason that we decided to take a step away from Valentine's Day was primarily, it goes back to our ethos and our philosophy. Our ethos of grown, not flown, which supports locally grown flowers. So in that time of the year, February, most of the Northern Hemisphere is still very much in winter season. So people need to stop and think, this is not spring yet, yeah? So a lot of the roses that are all being used and everything are flown in to Malaysia. And they are grown in climate control hothouses and horticulture farms and all, because there is a global demand for roses at that time. So there's a lot of products being flown into the country. So that's the carbon footprint we're talking about. Secondly, it's very easy to say, but Brenda, you support locally grown flowers anyway. But you should be open and you should do Valentine's Day. Just sell local flowers. This has become a problem in recent days because when the COVID pandemic hit us as badly as it hit the whole world, in Malaysia, flower farms were badly impacted. So us as florists, some of us were out of jobs for like 5-6 months. It's a long time to be out of a job lah. And then because the farmers were harvesting, because it's grown, right? The crop is grown. You have to harvest the crop. They harvested it, but there was no downstream to send it to. So there was the first entire batch of harvest had to be thrown away. Of course, then people say, oh, you should have sent it to the frontliners. You should have done this. You should have done that. There's a lot of you should have. But transportation wasn't even running properly. Where do you think, how are they? And then to what end? Bring it down here to KL or to any distribution point. And then where? Everybody was in lockdown. Who's going to handle it? So there's a lot of things. So the first batch was harvested and then was dumped. And we all saw this in the news. This is not a secret about farmers having to dump their crops. Because if they didn't harvest, how are they going to regrow? You have to harvest, clear the land, and then replant so that the next batch. And this is also on a wing and a prayer and optimism that you do it, and then hopefully a couple of months down the road when it grows, you can harvest and the world will return to its normal position, and then everything, a lesson that we all now know that didn't happen lah. It didn't happen that way. So some farmers actually lost up to 2 whole harvests, and this is a huge loss for them. So in order to go to market, what the farmers did were they switched to vegetables. They switched to growing vegetables, because at least vegetables you can harvest and go to market, even if flowers couldn't. In the process of this making the decision, we lost almost 40-50% of the flower farms here in Malaysia. Lost in the sense that they switched what they were growing. And the remaining farms, there are farms, but because also it makes economic sense, what they've done is they have arrangements with overseas purchasers that their harvest would go lock, stock, barrel, sold overseas. They fetch a better price, it's like, people make economic decisions based on their needs and wants lah. So there is now an issue with the shortage of locally grown flowers. So yes, I can say, we will be open for Valentine's Day, and then we will only sell locally grown flowers. I wasn't convinced that we were going to get the best stock at that time. I wasn't convinced. We know that this time of the year, there's a global shortage everywhere for red roses. The demand is so high, right? So even over here, I wasn't sure that what we were getting is going to be the best. And even when we got it, market forces would make prices be spectacularly expensive. Again, like I told you earlier, 80% of our customers buy from us again and again and again. These are people who buy from us for almost every occasion that they're celebrating, buy flowers for their homes, So even if I stayed open, I would have had to sell everything at a significantly more expensive price. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to stick it to customers, regular customers, because I couldn't control it. It was a hard decision because it's unheard of. I just took ourselves out of the equation now.
Which I always thought it was such a good strategy in a way.
I had to educate though. I had to really explain. So the best way I could do it was I wrote a long letter to the people who follow us and to customers and just basically the public at large, explaining why this was done. I posted up on Nook Flowers page, and interestingly enough, this post was shared in some global floral network platform that is, florists world over and wholesalers, and everybody's like on this platform, and they shared the post, and it says Nook Flowers, and they said, "Oh, this is an interesting stance that this florist has taken. Discuss." I was called stupid many times on that thread. Yeah. And irresponsible, and the fact that I wasn't thinking of my customers. So there were people who had very strong views about it, but there were equally as many florists who say, you know what? I haven't had my shop open for Valentine's Day for 5 years. It's just not worth it. And I haven't lost the customer yet. So I saw the stupid things and I saw the irresponsible things, name calling, but then I thought, okay, that's your opinion. But what I took to heart were all the people who said, this has worked for me. And then I appreciated the fact that said she didn't have to explain why she made her decision. It's her business. What she does with it is her choice. But she explained why she's doing this. So there's, and they took the merit of the explanation. There were equally as many people who said, can I please use this? Can I copy and use this? This is very well written. So I was like, but so it came from the fact that how do I do Valentine's Day and still keep up with our ethos and philosophy? And I realized I couldn't, and I didn't want to half-heartedly do it. I didn't lose customers here. I didn't. People wrote in and said, okay, Brent, so you're going to be closed from this day to this day. When are you reopening? I said, I think we reopen on the 18th or 19th. And they said, okay, fine. So I'll get my flowers then. Just put me down for it. Yeah. And then the best part was there were some notes, so sweet, right? So I handwrite all the notes that go out from the shop. Everything is handwritten. So one of the notes said, happy every day is Valentine's Day. My favorite florist was closed. And I couldn't possibly give you flowers from somebody else. And I loved it. I was like, sure.
I find that so refreshing. I mean, you dared to take a stand for something that you believed in.
Yeah, but I had my 3 a.m. panic attacks, yeah, Krista. I had that whole anxiety thing, like, I had the whole, am I doing this for the right reasons? Is this, what is driving I had to have that whole,
But you see, that's what you said, right? You didn't lose customers. Your customers actually thought it was also a good way of, well, so what? She's not going to be around for the next few days, but after that she'll be opening shop again and we can still buy flowers from her.
Yeah.
So really, I just want to congratulate you on being really brave and courageous on this. I mean, not many people would think like, wow, this is my business and this is what I believe in and I want to put those two things together. And that is what I always try to tell people. As business owners, I mean, we have the chance to do that, right? To do something a little bit different, not for the sake of being different, but being different so that it lets people think differently. Yeah. And lets people question their like,
and widen perspectives a little bit.
Yeah. And make them think, all these years I've been buying red roses that actually were not locally grown or, were like flown like 10,000 miles away or something like that. Start thinking, these are my decisions. These are the decisions I made. And now that I know better, I do better.
Actually, that's true, because once we know better, you do better. And as consumers, right, once they know better, they purchase better. And it's a responsibility that we have to this continuous knowledge sharing is important. This continuous educating and re-educating is important. It's like when people call me and they say, hi, do you have peonies today? I'm sorry, sir. Peonies are a seasonal flower. We don't actually carry them all the time. Also, I need you to know that this is also an imported flower. It's not readily available. Because, my girlfriend says peony or nothing else. Okay. That was a massive eye roll, right? You saw my eye roll, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So then this gives me a chance to ask her, but why? What is it that she likes about peonies? Is it the color? Because we can find others that mimic the same color. Is it the texture? Is it the scent? It gives me a chance to deconstruct the thinking a little bit and introduce new things. I can only do this because I'm actually talking to them on the phone or engaging in a conversation. But often, so because if it's the scent you want, let me introduce other things to you that have a beautiful bouquet that is full of scent. Lately, we've managed to find a source of locally grown lavender, not the flower, but lavender foliage. And my God, it smells so good. It smells so good, no? And I do sneaky little things. These are sneaky things. Like sometimes when an order comes in for a bouquet, then I'm told that, I want to send this to my friend. She's going through a hard time. Or I just want to lift somebody's spirits. So I always add things like this inside. I add locally grown chamomile and lavender. And then when you get this bouquet, right, then it's like a floral hug because it smells so good. And then, lavender, as we all know, is calming. And to have this little piece of joy in your house as you walk past, so little sneaky things that I do. I like to do these kind of things.
I love how you say it just now. It's a floral hug. Wow. So I think that could be something. It's a floral hug. Almost like embrace you in its beautiful scent and also the warmth of the flowers. Yeah. That's so lovely.
There's joy. There's such joy in this. And whether it's something that you want to do for somebody who's going through a hard time, or whether it's something you want to do for somebody to celebrate them. The other day I put up a picture and actually I was particularly annoyed because there was massive fireworks were going on the night before. Massive fireworks. And also because we have dogs at home also. So I'm like, for me, I'm always very, So the next day I put up this bouquet, which looked like fireworks, frankly. It's just like an explosion of colors. and I put a post up that said something like, floral fireworks. So much better, than the actual thing in the sky. There's no smoke, there's no noise, and you can still enjoy it for much longer than the 5 seconds that it's up there. But these are the driving factors, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Inspiration comes from everywhere, even from the
it
most
does.
crazy circumstances.
Yeah. Also slight pettiness sometimes. I'm annoyed at the fireworks, so I will make a fireworks bouquet.
Well, you're inspired by it. That's good.
Yeah.
At least there's some inspiration from whatever that bugs you or is around you.
Yeah.
So all these 15 years you've been in business, and then it's family business, and it's your husband's in it, your sister's in it. What are some of the things that you've learned about running a business? Besides that, it's not linear.
I realized that sometimes just because it's a product that I like or I think it's going to sell, doesn't necessarily sell. And I shouldn't take these things to heart, because at the end of the day, it's for me to give my customers what they want. So it's also a really good learning curve, because I'm convinced that this is the product that will do it. But then the customer trends are completely different. They would pick something which I wouldn't necessarily say that would be my favorite or something. But I need to understand that my job is just to give the best, right? But their taste isn't always reflective of my taste, and that's fine. So I shouldn't take those kind of things. My creative ego shouldn't be bruised about that. Yeah, it's also a really good learning curve for me, because I think sometimes I see things too artistically, or I look at it with floral eyes, right? The different kind of floral eyes that I see things. But to a customer, what they're looking for is something different. So this is every day it's a good learning experience. Yeah, that's the lesson that I'm stuck in at the moment, that I'm working through. Yeah.
But I think for anyone involved in a business where there's a lot of art and design involved, I think sometimes we can't help but feel like that's like a little bit like our baby, right?
A little bit.
I'm putting my baby out in the world, and I hope that my customer or my client likes it. But sometimes, like you say, how we see it is not how they see it, because they have different expectations of the product.
Yeah. And then I shouldn't take it to heart. I should just understand what makes them tick, and then work better for them the next time.
Before we end, I just want to ask 2 questions. One is, what are you no longer afraid of?
Oh, I want to say I'm no longer afraid of failure, but that's not true. I don't know. Running a business, right? Sometimes it feels that every day there's new fears. Every different curveball that comes. I've become a little bit braver in terms of saying no when put in a position. If I was a younger brand, I said yes to everything. Every partnership that came my way, every collaboration, every influencer who wanted something from us, blah, blah, blah. I said yes to everything. But this was not a good way to do things. So I am now not afraid to say no if it doesn't suit what it is that we're doing, or if it in any way goes against our ethos. Or sometimes saying no means I will lose the business, but you have to stand for something or you fall for anything, right? Yeah. So that's one of the things. I'm not saying I don't obsess about it. After I say no, I obsess about it a lot. Then I have to talk to other business owners in my position, and then you realize that everybody goes through this. But yeah, that's a major one. Yeah.
And what's the craziest thing you've ever done?
Say no to Valentine's Day.
I thought that was coming out. I kind of guess you were going to say something like that.
My God, that's the craziest thing.
But okay, so I think that from what we've talked about for this past hour, I believe that you really know what you're doing. And I know that comes from inside. And I like talking to business owners who have that, because sometimes businesses can be purely transactional. Can be like, you just do this, someone pays me the money, I'll just do it. But I'm also looking to talk to people who find it that, well, beyond the transactional, what else do we have, right? So I think yours is the business with the ethos and the principles and the values. And I like that. And I honestly really like that. So I'm glad that there's someone like Brenda James out there who's doing something crazy. Like saying no. Yeah. Saying no to Valentine.
When I started Nook Flowers, right, one of the reasons that we thought that we could make a difference was there were not a lot of people out there who were making flowers the way we liked flowers to be. Absence of packaging, it's like so sometimes if nothing is available, you have to create. So that's how we started with creating it. And even then, supporting local was very important to me. From day one, that was a very important principle. But I was young in the business, in a business that I wasn't, it was like really from ground zero, self-taught, everything was like self-research. There was like nobody I could, so I was very young in the business. But the Nook Flowers now, today at 15 years of age, and the Brenda who is at the helm of Nook Flowers today, it has been a constant work in progress. Today I can sit here and talk calmly and confidently to you, armed with knowledge and facts and precedents and case studies, because I've walked the path, right? But when I started 15 years ago, it was a dream, a romanticized dream. I knew what I wanted. It took a long time to get there, because growth is not linear, right? It took a long time to get there, and there's a lot of wrong roads along the way as well. That there was constantly you have to stop to check yourself. Are you on the path? Are you on the path? I still have my notebook from my first year, and I was looking through it a few months ago. I was looking through it and thinking to myself, wow, I had some great ideas, but I wasn't big enough for those ideas. Now I wasn't big enough, not in terms of business capacity or capability. I wasn't big enough in terms of confidence and knowledge to be able to do all of that. But I'm glad that even then, in day one, that nucleus is already there. It was like this guiding principle stuff. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Brenda. A lot of people think that success is just like, like you see what the business is right now, and you think, wow, they're super successful, they have tons of fans, tons of followers. But every business has suffered and has gone through this turbulent times. Turbulent times nobody knows, right? It's only
nobody knows.
Yeah,
like the fact that post-COVID, when we were shut down for so long, we weren't even sure whether we would be able to reopen. Whether in a flower shop, when you shut down, everything shuts down, right? It's not one blade of grass, leaf, flower, nothing. Nothing's going to last. And they kept telling us at the time it's 2 weeks. Even if it was 2 weeks, nothing would have lasted. Nothing is going to last 2 weeks. So whatever plants we had in the shop, after 2 weeks, we brought it back home and we looked after it at home. All the buckets were washed and turned upside down. In the 3rd week mark, we switched off refrigeration. Because what are refrigerators running for? So like empty refrigerators, nothing is in them. In the 3rd week mark. At about the 4th month, you're like, okay, I don't know where this is going. Well, how will cash flow be impacted when we reopen? It's a small business. Cash flow is important. There was zero income for the retail operations. So there was this whole thing. So being able to start up after COVID was already in the face of so many small businesses that had shut down, like forever kind of shut down. In the face of so many of our floral industry partners and friends and just counterparts have all had to shut down. Just to be able to reopen and say, hey guys, Nook Flowers is now reopened, was a monumental victory for us. But it took so much out of us. It took so much out of it. And this is not an uncommon story among small businesses. And then you restart, and then it's the non-stop challenges in terms of rising stock prices, and then it's just everything when China shuts down, everything has a reverberating effect, right? Supply chain, everything from containers that you use to wires to everything. Not necessarily the flowers, because we were depending on local for flowers, but just the effect of it. Oh, yeah. So it's just been a series of curveball after curveball after curveballs. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Yeah.
And yeah. And
but it was an opportunity, to stop and say, when I reopen, do I want to operate the same way I've always been operating? Because suddenly you've been given a chance, right? You don't have a say in it, but it's a grinding halt. So it becomes a grinding halt. Then when we also changed certain things in which how we did things. It was a good opportunity for us to take stock that way and do it. Yeah, but no 2 months have been alike since then. Nothing has really truly stabilized, but you just carry on lah.
So, Brenda, finally, where can people find you online if they want to talk to Brenda? Or they want to connect with Brenda or Nook Flowers?
The best, our website is nookflowers.com. So people can head on there and read about our ethos and our philosophy and why championing grown not flown is important to us. If you're going to get to the website, then you can quite easily find our social media handles there. We are Nook Flowers on Instagram and on Facebook. And also our phone numbers are there, so just hit us up. Sometimes even if you're stuck and you don't know which way to go with flowers, I'm happy to give some advice.
Florists giving some advice on what kind of flowers would be good for the person that you want to send flowers to, right? Yeah. Because sometimes we always get stuck with the question like, what kind of flowers? Nobody knows until you talk to a florist.
Yeah. I'm happy to deconstruct that for you.
And make something really beautiful out of it.
Yeah.
So thank you, Brenda. I really enjoyed it. You remember when we hit the record button, you said, I don't know whether we're going to talk for an hour?
What are we at now? It's 1 hour and 12 minutes. Wow, look at us.
Look at that. Look at how the conversation has grown, right?
And meandered.
Yes, but interesting.
And then I stopped twice and I asked you, I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I think you did. So thank you so much for spending this hour with me and talking about what you believe in. And as a small business owner, what you truly, truly want to do, not only for your clients, giving them the best of what you have to offer, but also in a way impacting the community positively so that they are more aware of the choices they're making when they're purchasing flowers.
Absolutely.
Or floral arrangement.
Yeah. And people need to just understand that, sustainability is not a buzzword, it's not a trend, it is the only path forward. And it's not a matter of if anymore, but it's just we all have to adopt better and different practices, and the when is now. There's no other time. Just start making better purchases now.
Yeah. So thank you once more, Brenda. It's been
my pleasure, Krista. It's really good to do with you. Thanks for this.
Thank you. So what do you think? Did you like this episode with Brenda James of Nook Flowers? I truly enjoyed chatting with Brenda because she's unapologetic about the decisions she has made in her business. Sometimes the reason we're in business is because we get to make the decisions that others don't want to make. I love how Brenda showcased passion and principles in her business. Brenda demonstrated that integrating passion and principles into your business can elevate it beyond a mere transaction. Our conversation shows that Nook Flowers is not just a floral studio. It's a living embodiment of Brenda's commitment to responsible entrepreneurship and responsible gifting of flowers. I bet you won't look at another bouquet the same way again after this episode. Brenda's decision to close on Valentine's Day, despite controversy, exemplifies the power of sticking to her values. Her commitment and beliefs not only resonates with the customers, but also showcases that staying true to your principles can be a strength in business. Finally, Nook Flowers' grown not flown philosophy highlights the importance of responsible floristry as a core business philosophy. Brenda's dedication to locally grown flowers not only supports the environment, but also adds depth, purpose, and meaning to each floral creation. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow entrepreneurs. Plus, if you want to leave me an audio message, you can now do so. Just head on over to womenprenneurasia.com and click on the contact page for the link. I'd love to get your audio message. Until next time, this is Krista Gun signing off, reminding you that your entrepreneurial journey is as unique and as beautiful as a carefully crafted bouquet. Keep blooming.